All right. Douglas, we've got the next article, which is about the F-16s in Ukraine.
Oh, dude.
Oh,
Ukraine's
boy.
newly acquired F-16s compared to the Russian Su-35 flanker fighter jet. Ukraine's set to receive 42 F-16s from Denmark and the Netherlands. A lot of people are saying the flanker, like particularly Russian people, saying the flanker is going to kick their butt because it's equipped with very effective radar and long-distance rockets. However, retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Dan Hampton believes the multi-role fighter jet, the Su-35, is junk, despite its apparent capabilities. Said the Su-35 is a typical Russian machine that looks good at air shows. Personal opinions is junk. The F-16s are more durable. And then there's a special for you mover. F-16s are also multi-role aircrafts. Have at it.
Oh boy.
First of all, I'm disappointed in the word aircrafts because it's
Aircrafts.
aircraft. You don't add an S. It's very simple. I'm going to remove that, Doug. All right. So, Gonky, this is something that's near and dear to our hearts because you've got experience with Russian aircrafts.
Yeah. Aircrafts. Yes. Very good aircrafts. Yeah, I've read that article. And first of all, I've never heard. Is that guy a fighter pilot, ex-fighter pilot, former, current?
Yeah, he retired. Dan Hampton wrote the book Viper Pilot or Driver, Viper something. And he's got some fiction books. He was a patch wearer, talked about seed in his books.
I mean, like, Casmo, even helicopters attack. Do you ever refer to, that's a durable? That Apache's awfully durable. No, man. Like,
I don't use that word.
Reliable.
Yeah. When somebody says, hey, that jet just looks good at air shows, and everything else is garbage, that tells me they probably never actually fought one. Because when I was active duty Navy, we studied the MiG-29, we studied the flanker series of aircraft, and that was kind of the that's kind of what we all thought in our heads, which was we're just being pro-American. But then when I went to Malaysia and actually got to fight MiG-29s and Su-30s, which is similar to the Su-35, I realized real quick that no, these airplanes are pretty capable. And then also, when I first started flying the Hornet, MiG-29 was a baseline threat, and their capabilities weren't that good. And then all of a sudden, I believe it was the Air Force did some exercises with the Indians and their flankers, and then like literally overnight, it was, oh, hey, holy cow, these airplanes are a lot better than we thought. So for him to say that they're junk is pretty ignorant, in my opinion. I've fought Su-30s, which the Malaysian Su-30s don't have the high-end Russian electronics in them. The Russians basically sold them the airplane, and then they have a little bit different avionics and radar in it. But regardless, BVR, that thing, I would not want to fight that airplane BVR in an F-16 based on what I saw. Because those guys get up in the 50s, Mach 1.3, and they are lobbing stuff at long range. And it's not fun.
The headline is Ukraine will receive 61 F-16s, 42 from the Netherlands, 19 from Denmark. I don't remember. Sorry, Doug, if you already mentioned that in the article. So these are the midlife upgrade MLU jets. They're upgraded jets, kind of a Block 50-ish standard. But they're not. So they're about what American F-16s were 10 years ago, right? So, they're good airplanes, reliable, but it's not like Block 70, conformal fuel tanks, ESA radars, there's a lot more to it than just here's some F-16s and go. Now, are they more capable than a MiG-29, from the 90s and 80s? Well, sure. But to say that, and this has been a very common thing, it's not a game changer. It's because what do you get when you get F-16s? You have to have maintenance, which they're going to get. You have to have qualified pilots, which they're going to get. I don't have a problem with any fighter pilot in the world jumping in an F-16 and being qualified in between 2 and 3 months, even shorter. I mean, it's a very easy jet to fly. It's difficult to employ, especially when you're not used to some of the systems and stuff and missiles. I don't know if they're going to add AMRAAMs, but even if you do, they're not unlimited. You don't have unlimited. We're already running out of stuff over there. You don't have unlimited assets to give them, and it's not a full up shooting war as it is, because what is right next to the border? The Russian SAM systems, the IADs.
Yep.
So you have to have a robust seed program, suppression of enemy air defense. There's a lot more to it than just here's some jets, go win the war. Now, is the F-16 a very capable fighter? Absolutely. Is a Su-35 very capable? Yes. Do I want to go? I will say this about any fighter that you put up there. If I'm sitting in the seat, I believe that I'm the guy that's going to kill every single one of the red guys every single time, no matter what. Is that realistic? I don't know, but I would say that the standard fighter pilot weapon school answer of it depends is going to apply here, because I haven't really even seen any Su-35s in this war. It's mostly Su-27s and maybe some Su-30s and mostly the Frogfoot. You know, I mean, it's a ground war.
They're not using they're not using
because it's a contested, denied, degraded environment. You know, you're denying it with either the HIMARS and the Patriots on one side and the double-digit SAMs on the other, so that it's not going to change a whole lot unless you've got a robust seed package that's going to take down one side's IADs, integrated air defense, and then you try to gain air superiority after that. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter what you do, because and again, if they're bombing your base, where are you going to land the F-16? It's not very good on roads.
Yeah, the F-16 is literally just another pawn in the game. And if you don't use it as part of a well thought out, layered offensive or defensive plan, like it's going to get smoked. Right. Or it could dominate. If it's a great plan, it could dominate, but it's just a piece of the puzzle.
Well, but back to your point, Gonky, I agree with you. I mean, no one, I think I'm hoping it was just taken out of context, because a lot of times I've seen articles written from stuff we've said where, it's like, well, Lemoyne says this. And it's like, okay, I've made it first off, but second, that's not what I meant. But, I hope that was just a little bit of hubris and, hey, I'm the world's greatest fighter pilot and F-16 is the greatest jet in the world, which I agree with. And, screw everybody else because, America number one. However, if you're looking at this from a realistic, objective perspective, if that jet is airborne and I'm fighting a 4 or 8 ship of Su-35s, it's a big deal. It is a very potent threat. It is a very capable threat, and I would not underestimate it. And with any aircraft, even a Raptor or an F-35, because dude, there's a lot going on there. And you underestimate your enemy at your own peril. Also, the Russians do electronic attack very well. They jamming pods and stuff like that. They went a different route than stealth, and they do that very well. And I would hate to underestimate them just because, we got these F-16s and now we're going to win the war. Slow down. Tactics win wars, not equipment.
Yep.
Casmo, I'm sorry. What do you have for this?
No, I know. When I was dogfighting the Scorpion attack helicopter down in South America, I was thinking these same things. No, but I wonder too, like, it's not just the equipment, it's the pilots. And it's been pretty much proven that the Russian Air Force pilots just don't have near the flight time and the experience. So you can give them a really nice aircraft, but they may not be able to put it, all the way to the edge of its capability. But then the same can be said for, like you said, with the F-16. So I wonder, just a lot of this just seems like messaging more like, just it's more support. And of course, where else is Ukraine going to get stuff? Because they were using Soviet era stuff anyway, right? Like MiG-29s and MiG-21s and stuff like that. So they're not going to get any more from Russia. So they got to get something from somewhere. And it's at this point almost like a numbers game of just, do we have enough stuff to put up in the air to thwart, attacks? Because I don't think that they're necessarily their thoughts on a grander scale is to turn around and counterattack and invade Russia necessarily. I mean, there's been some push that way, but not necessarily intent to take anything. So I don't know.
You bring up a good point. Sorry.
I was just going to say that. I mean, that is the answer, right? Is it's tactics over all the other stuff, because the tactics don't come with the jets. We have classified 3-1, 3-3. We're not going to give them our playbook necessarily, because who's going to exploit that? We as Americans, okay, here's your equipment. We're giving this through our foreign allies. You're getting these Dutch F-16s, but we're not going to give you, okay, here's exactly what we would do in this situation, because if we do that, the Russians and the Chinese are going to exploit it. And, you have to be careful with, it's the same thing we were talking about the other week with DCS. You can't show everything, because people will sit there and go, okay, yeah, he did this at this time. This is an American tactic. Okay, yeah, copy. We know what to do now. So the jets, they're capable, but there's more to it. Go ahead, Gonky. I'm sorry.
No, Casmo brings up a good point. The mindset of a Western trained fighter pilot is a lot of autonomy. So you get a lot of info, you make decisions, and you execute based on the current scenario. The Russian doctrine, generally speaking, at least when I was in, was very much ground-based control. And I actually got to experience that. We were doing like a mixed exercise with the MiG-29s when I was in Malaysia, and we were using the more Russian doctrine, and it completely crushed me. I had no idea what was going on. You're just waiting for orders, basically, and it was not effective. But MiG-29, Su-35, those are very different airplanes. So I don't know if they've updated anything since then, but if it's the same command and control mentality, you're right, Chasm. That's a big, in my mind, that's a big negative.
Yeah. And someone in chat wants to disagree with me, and that's fine. You can disagree all you want about who has more flight time, but what I'm talking about is quality of flight time. So some people have 1,000 hours, some people have the same hour 1,000 times. And the bottom line, just like Gonky said, that's not quality. Just doing idiot circles in the sky, waiting for someone else to tell you to do something, is not the same thing as the type of stuff that Western aviators get to do. So,
because what happens when you take it all away? You jam the comms, you jam the GPS, you jam everything. The link goes down, and now you're just autonomous, raging singletons, like a roving motorcycle gang.
Sounds fun.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, we had that until the number 3 frats number 2, because he turns hot and thinks that it's the same guy. And oh boy. But I guess my point is, that is an environment where I would not want to be learning tactics.
No.
I would not want to be learning how to employ the F-16. And I know they're not, but they're still going to be new to the jet. And you're going to be new to the jet in real world conditions. Now, granted, the opposite of what I said is true, where we give them this equipment and we kind of learn how to exploit some weaknesses on the other side. But so far, and Casmo, this is a segue into that, Douglas, thank you. We haven't seen an all out, air-to-air shooting war. In fact, there hasn't been much because of the SAM, IADS laydown. You haven't seen a couple onesie twosies dogfights, but there really hasn't been like a 4VX where it's 4 Ukrainian fighters versus however many Russian fighters, and they just duke it out over the skies, like Battle of Britain. It's been, a couple. What are most of the shoot downs been? Some kind of strike where a Patriot or a Russian SAM shoots down. Yeah, they are Manpad. Yeah, they just shoot down. And really, the air picture in Ukraine, I know, Casmo, I'm going to let you get to this in a second, but it's been drones. It's just little drones that are just lobbing little grenades or kamikaze drones. In fact, there was a thing recently, a Russian bomber was destroyed by a kamikaze drone. $150. There you go. It's over. Done. See you later. You don't even need an air picture. I know, Casmo, you wanted to talk about it, so please continue.
Yeah, well, for one thing, for that, obviously that's outside of my wheelhouse, but it does seem strange. But I guess because of the proximity, right? Because it seems like, the moment you take off, you're basically within Super SAM range. And how do you get into a big fight in that, relatively small bit of airspace? Because you're right, we did see some stuff kind of early on, but it's sort of these onesie twosies types events. So, what are your thoughts on that? As far as, is it just because it's such a small playground and there's these high threat systems that can reach so far? I know aircraft were getting shot at from SAMs, on the other side of the border.
I think when you're having to fly low altitude and that is you're just defending your city, it'd be interesting to get one of those guys on here to talk about it within the limits of what they can, because I think, we've done ambush caps as red air Gonky. We've done short range commits as blue air. It's a different world when you're talking inside of a 20-mile range. When you're inside this 20-mile bubble and everything is within that, dude, that's a whole different world than we've got 100 miles to set the picture, get the call. Everybody's pacing, everybody knows where everybody is, and now we're just on timelines. Well, if you're that close, you don't have a timeline. You're just, you really are the roving motorcycle gang. So the skirmishes are much closer, and I think that's why you see a lot of blue on blue or red on red shoot downs of SAMs, because it is a nasty, nasty picture. And I'm sure there's a lot of, comm jamming, radar jamming. I'm sure the Trons that are being thrown out in that battle space are, stuff we've never seen. And I think it will change tactics in the future.
Right. Yeah.
Rocky?
And look, the end of the day, because I see a lot of back and forth in the chat too. I'm just kind of following along. Like, by no means is anyone here saying this stuff is easy. It's not. It's actually very hard. What we're watching with a lot of the stuff, and especially on the helicopter side too, is learning, because you can read all the books and talk about all the tactics you want to do, but up until it's time to actually do it and experience it, there's just so much complexity that people just don't really think about in war, whether it's logistics, whether it's just space and time. And so I think that, yeah, we're watching both sides learn a lot. And then you're just in an environment that, at least for us in the West, we probably never really thought about that much, of having that sort of such a narrow area to fight. At least not since like the Cold War, like the Fulda Gap type scenario. And that's so ancient history as far as we're concerned, tactics wise.
Well, the other thing,
look at.
Sorry.
I was just to say, look at our historical, how we've enforced no-fly zones. American doctrine is we're in a different country and we cap.
Right.
And then we push the line forward and back as we need. We don't take off
You're into it.
We don't take off into it. We move, so we build range. And in fact, and that's an argument for how it would change if there were NATO involvement, because you'd be moving that line way far back and then cleaning out the air picture. But look at Syria. That was a seed war. It wasn't even a war. It was seed. Libya, all those, lower intensity, I guess, relative to stuff we've done. That was, the Block 50s going out there and then establishing, we're going to take down all their SAMs and then we're going to establish air superiority. And now we're going to control the picture. But here they don't have that luxury. They're shooting harms off of MiG-29s with no it's just, okay, good luck. See you later. And that's, I think that's one of the reasons they're happy, because it adds a little bit more capability with that.
Yeah. You're basically got two countries fighting in their backyard, right? So you bring up a good point. So when I flew for the RMAF, like when I was fighting the first couple of times I fought the SU-30, nobody died. Like, we would take our shots, high altitude, high speed, and then we were out. And because I briefed a DCA, well, apparently they briefed a DCA, and so after a couple of times with this, I'm like, guys, is there any flow required? They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what if you have to like go somewhere? They're like where? And I found out, it's a smaller country. They got 8 airplanes, right? Just like 60 Vipers, whatever. Like that's very valuable asset to them. They are like launching, like they're not willing to accept high risk mindset, right? So I think if Ukraine's going to use these F-16s, that's probably what they're going to do. And if you're Russia, the giant bear, you can play the long game, dude. Right? You can sit there all day and just keep throwing stuff up at them. I don't know. It depends. You can speculate all day, but overall, it's just sad to me that like people are literally dying over there for. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's not as cut and dry. Like, I don't think we're getting an accurate picture from what's actually going on from either side at any point. Like, I don't think,
of course not.
I don't think people are getting the truth. Just like, we get the Ghost of Kiev, you're going to get legends, you're going to get stories, fake. You're going to get truth. Right. But you're going to get all these different aspects, and we will not know until the dust is settled. So, or if you have, if you're actively monitoring it with a security clearance, which we would never talk about on this channel. So there's that. Anyway, Douglas, yeah, does not before Douglas. Remember, it's not.
There it
This is
is.
not DoD endorsement or any employer endorsement. This is just our stupid opinions.
Assuming, and I think this refers to the discussion previously, that SUs work. Russia's had a bit of an issue with that, as you say, though, and underestimating the enemy is bad news on any side.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming anything works, right? I mean, yes, they've had their issues in general, but I think a lot of that too is they play down to their enemy. So I think you're seeing that on the ground side a little bit. Is they're not beefing up anything beyond what they think they have to do for whatever they're trying to do. So, I mean, I think they'll either match the threat or they won't, because they don't need to because of the current IADs.
And Jordan, I mean, don't get me wrong. Western airplanes, I think, are superior in engineering assembly. Yeah. I think they're better airplanes, but you look at Russia and China, they're throwing numbers up there. And
right.
The baseline of Russia, China, whatever is getting better. Right. So I mean, these are capable airplanes, but they're 1-to-1, like the Western stuff, I believe, is better, but what they have is not bad.
Yeah, and it also too, Russian engineering, while not as refined, is good, but it's also made for very harsh conditions. These jets are, I mean, they're not the most elegant, but they will still get they're like big trucks, I mean, they're still gonna, the radar may not work great or whatever, but these jets are going to get airborne. They're not going to be like, oh, well, we're going to step to the spare. They're going to just take what they got.
You can't take off from a dirt road in an F-16, but you can in MiG-29.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's just not a game changer. That's all. It's a force enhancer. It's a great jet. It's going to help them overall, but it is not an overnight success story by any stretch of the imagination.